I'm Lance Yelvington for CyberCountry. I don't think there's any one of us that doesn't look around sometimes, or most times, and think, I'm really lucky to be alive. Well, it's with that same sentiment that Confederate Railroad is putting together a great album called, oddly enough, Lucky to Be Alive. And in this CyberCountry Minute, Danny Shirley is going to tell us what's coming up in this new album, Lucky to Be Alive, and what else Confederate Railroad has coming down the tracks. Danny, what can you tell me about Lucky to Be Alive? Because that describes a lot of our lives living through
at my age,
80s and 90s.
At this point of the band's life, it's very true. That's the name of the new album. It's the first new music we've done in 15 years. First new original music. Did a live album years ago and did a cover album a label had us do. But this is the first new Confederate Railroad music since 2001. Lucky to Be Alive does fit the project real well, I think. Me and the band's been together, drummer's been with me 35 years now, bass player almost 30 years. So I felt that title did fit what was going on in our lives and careers right now.
Well, the thing is, from everything that has evolved in the careers of Confederate Railroad and the lifespan, it's kind of a cool name, Lucky to Be Alive, because y'all have gone through some changes that have been both negative to a degree, but more positive than anything else, just through the experience.
Well, that's life in general, isn't it? You have good days and bad days. I've been doing this, July will be 40 years I've been doing this for a living. Back before Railroad, of course, we worked for David Allen Co. was his band, and before that, Johnny Paychecks. That's a long time, and still do 100 shows a year, and just feel very blessed to still be out there doing it.
Now, what went into putting this album together? Because you all have a lot of really great names going into this development.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we didn't really intend to do the record. It was never planned. I remember back in early 80s, I went to Waylon and told him, you're what made me a country music fan. And past few years, I've had a lot of these new acts come to me and say, man, I grew up being a Confederate Railroad fan. I remember sitting on the riverbank fishing, listening to Confederate Railroad records. One of the new acts said, I used to come play his hometown every year in a big bar, and he was too young to get in, so every year in February, him and his buddies would stand outside the back door and listen to the show because they're such big fans. So I got to thinking, you know what, maybe I should take some time and write some songs and pitch to these guys. I'd never pitched my material before, it's just always my own. And so I got together with a couple of buddies, Blue Miller and Sonny Lemaire from the band Exile. And we started talking about it, started writing some songs. And unintentionally, it started sounding like a Confederate Railroad album. So I said, well, let's just go ahead and make it into a record. And we'll sell it on iTunes and sell it at the shows. And lo and behold, ended up with a whole new record deal.
So how difficult was it to get people behind that idea? Because if it's like people like me, because y'all were part of the reason why I got into entertainment reporting.
Oh, cool.
So it's kind of cool. But how hard was it? Really tough just to go and say, hey, we'd like to do something Confederate Railroad?
No, it actually, the label came, they heard about what we were doing and came and found us. We never pitched this. We never went out trying to get a record deal. Our friends from Sony heard about what we were doing and said, we want to hear some of this stuff. We're really interested in putting this out. And so it was one of those things, how in life, when things just kind of fall together, how cool that is and how good it usually works.
Absolutely.
That's exactly what happened here. It was never planned. It was never intended. We didn't go out looking for a deal. They came to us, and just feel blessed with it. Yeah.
Now, anytime I get
and so cool that's what turned you on to country music. Man. I appreciate that.
Well, for entertainment reporting, I've been in Nashville all my life, but it was you all were the group, one of the groups that were able to blend the whole sort of southern rock country back in the day, and that was one of the cool things that I liked about
it's so funny going back and looking at those old reviews we had 25 years ago. They talk about the rock sound of it, and there were some negatives about it, and you listen to what's out now and it's like, wow, look how much has changed in 25 years, that they thought we were too rock sometimes, but it always worked, even since we quit making the records. I say we still do 100 dates a year. It's just amazing. And again, it gets back to that title, man. How lucky can you get?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I liked about the news release that came out was in bold letters it said "Revamp Trashy Women." And how can you not go after a story like that?
Well, again, that wasn't intended. We have 11 new songs on the album. And songwriter buddy of mine, Bernie Nelson, who co-wrote Cadillac Kind, one of our big hits years ago, he had the idea. And I'm like, well, why? You sold millions of copies of it, you won awards for it, why recut Trashy Women? And we got to talking about it and said, well, what if we got some other people to sing it with us? That might be fun. And then after we talked about that, I said, what about if we do this and give all the money to charity? How cool would that be, And then you've got a reason to redo it. It is such a memorable song and was such a big hit for us. And then you get John Henderson, Willie Nelson, Colt Ford, and even my old football buddy Jerry Glanville on it. And, how could that not be fun?
True. Well, one of the things, too, that I liked about this were some of the people that were going into writing and performing on it. I know Dan Tominski worked with you on one album. That's for a bluegrass legend. That's kind of cool to work with him, too.
I had never done anything bluegrass, never even considered it. I always had a big respect for bluegrass musicians. I think they're some of the best musicians ever. And I got to working with a guy named Tim Austin, who was in the Lonesome River Band with Dan Tominski. And it was real funny. I had a couple of my old musician buddies who eventually went into bluegrass. They were in my early bands back in the 80s. And they said, who is that guy? And I said, it's Tim Austin. They said, the Tim Austin? No, I don't know. And then he calls another buddy of ours and says, you're not going to believe who Danny's got as his road manager, Tim Austin. He said, the Tim Austin? As I go to Tim and I said, are you famous? And come find out he's like a bluegrass legend, And so he started bringing in some old CDs he had made over the years, and I got to listen more and more of this. And I thought, man, how much fun would it be for me and my old bandmates from back in the 80s and Tim and, make this old song I'd written years ago, I Don't Feel As Young As I Used To. It never quite came together the way I heard it. And I thought, I wonder if we could change that into a bluegrass deal. And so, of course, Tim says, well, let me call Dan Tominski and say, he'll play on it. I said, cool, and I'm getting more questions about that in interviews and stuff than just about any other song other than Trashy Women, the bluegrass thing.
Let me ask you, what are the favorite songs on this album that you liked?
That's hard to say. One time I listened to it, and of course, having written so much of this album, we're in different moods and feeling different emotions when you wrote this stuff. And one time I listened to it and said, well, that's definitely my favorite. And then another day I might be in a different mood and say, no, I think I like that one better. So I really can't say a favorite. As far as the actual recording of it, I guess the Trashy Women thing, just because having all the guys sing it with me.
Now, was it real hard putting everything together at the last final cut, because you had all these great songs that you got to choose from? Was that tough coming up with the final songs for that?
No, not really, because we were under no deadline or anything. It was just, and we worked on this for 3 or 4 years. I'd be in Nashville, and Blue would be in Nashville, and I'd say, well, let's work Wednesday, okay, and we'd go work a little bit. And just kind of added to it slowly. And then toward the end, it's like, I think we got an album, And there were some things that we'd written that we didn't use, but I'm real happy with the way it turned out. The ones that we wrote and even the ones that I didn't write. I'm real happy with the way it came together.
Why should anybody get out and see your show or buy this album?
I've never understood why they do either. I really hadn't.
Wrong answer, right?
I'm just honest, though, I don't know what it is. Something struck a chord in what we do with people that has lasted for, going on 30 years now. They still come to the shows. They still buy the records. I still hear my stuff on the radio. I think if nothing else, it was the honesty in it. We never pretended to be something we weren't. We never... I think it's just the honesty and the truth in it. It's just real stuff, and it's always kind of, with me, it's always kind of like, take it or leave it. I hope you like it, but if you don't, I kind of understand, and same way with the shows, we're not great singers or great musicians, but something about it has lasted this long, so I guess each individual just has to figure out why it is they like it. Hey, I'm Danny Shirley, the band Confederate Railroad. Be sure to check out our new album, Lucky to Be Alive. For information, go to our website at confederaterailroad.net.